My family kept quiet for months about my sister sold the painting I created during my mental breakdown. When I found out, she said, it was just gathering dust. I laughed. You mean the one that saved my life? My brother tried to defend her. She thought it'd help with your bills. I looked them dead in the eyes. You sold my trauma as art. Then I walked out, leaving behind the family that cashed in on my pain. I was halfway through microwaving some leftover chili when I got the call. It was a Tuesday, maybe 2:30 in the afternoon. The kind of cloudy, stale day where the light never really shows up. I remember the microwave beeping, but I didn't even open the door. My phone was buzzing on the counter like it was mad at me. Talia. That's my sister. We hadn't talked in maybe 4 months, not that I was keeping count. I stared at her name, thumb hovering, already feeling a weird pit in my stomach. You know when someone calls you out of nowhere and you can tell something's off just from the ringtone? That was this. I picked it up. Hey. Ruben. Hey, hi. Wow, you actually answered. Her voice was too bright. Too cheerful. Like she was forcing a smile through the phone. Yeah. Hey. What's going on? Oh, nothing urgent. Just thought I'd check in. Haven't talked in a while. She never just called to check in. That was red flag number 1. Talia was all about precision. Every call, every text, every interaction had a motive. I leaned against the counter. All right. What's up? She launched into small talk. Asked about my cat, about work, about mom's upcoming birthday. I played along, but the whole time, I felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it did. Oh, she said like it just occurred to her. I almost forgot. Remember that painting? The big one? The one with the creepy tree and the red sky. My stomach flipped. You mean the one from St. Agnes? Yeah, that one. So it was just sitting in mom's garage and I figured, why let it collect dust? I sold it. I paused. You what? I sold it, she said again like it was no big deal. To this local collector in Charlotte. You'd actually be flattered. She loved it. You sold my painting? I said slowly like my brain was trying to catch up. The one I made during group therapy? After I got out of the psych ward. It was just gathering dust, Ruben. Mom said you hadn't asked about it in years. I felt the air get out of the room. You mean the one that saved my life? Talia gave this half laugh. Come on, Rube. It's just a painting. And that's when it snapped. No, I said. No, it's not just a painting. That thing. I bled into that canvas. That was my breakdown. That was the only thing I could hold on to when I was drowning. There was silence on her end. Then a voice in the background, Kyle's. My younger brother. He must have been nearby. He thought it'd help with your bills, he said. I didn't even know he was part of the conversation until then. What? The power got cut at your place last December, remember? Talia figured the money could help. She meant well. I felt dizzy. You sold my trauma as art, I said. Quiet. Calm. Too calm. And then I hung up. Walked out of my apartment. I didn't take my phone. I didn't put on shoes. I walked 3 blocks until my feet hurt and my heart felt like it was gonna explode. Let me rewind a bit. I'm 43. Divorced. No kids. I live in a modest 2-room apartment in Asheville above a hardware store that closes by 6 p.m. every day. My life hasn't exactly gone according to plan. 3 years ago, everything collapsed. My marriage ended when Harper, my now ex-wife, sat me down one morning over burnt toast and lukewarm coffee and told me she was in love with someone else. Not just someone else, but someone she worked with. Someone who'd been in our house. Someone who'd toasted our anniversary. That same month, I lost my job. I was working at a boutique ad agency that decided it needed a younger direction, which apparently didn't include a 40-year-old burnout with a bad back and no Instagram. And if that wasn't enough, my best friend Cole, my ride or die since 8th grade, died in a drunk driving accident. He wasn't even the one driving. Just in the passenger seat, asleep. Gone. Everything broke at once. I broke. I spiraled. Fast. I stopped answering the phone. Stopped eating. I didn't shower for 12 days straight. I remember because I started writing the number in the dust on the mirror. 12. Then one night, I swallowed half a bottle of sleeping pills and something, I still don't know what, made me throw them up and call 911. I don't remember dialing. I just remember waking up in St. Agnes, strapped to a bed, a nurse feeding me orange jello with a plastic spoon. That place saved me. Not in the movies and miracles kind of way, but in the quiet way. In the daily group sessions. In the meds. In the art room where I first picked up a brush again after 5 years. That's where the painting came from. It was a tree, twisted and black, stretching up into a blood-red sky. I remember shaking while painting it. My hand wouldn't stop. The whole canvas came alive with something I didn't understand. When I finished, I cried. Not because it was good. But because it was real. It was me. When I got out, I took it to Mom's house because my apartment was too cramped and I didn't want to look at it every day. It felt too raw. I meant to pick it up. I really did. But life crept in. Rent, side gigs, depression, loneliness. It just stayed there. And they sold it. I tried to keep it together. I really did. But something snapped in me that day. I started calling around. I needed to know who had it, where it was, if I could buy it back. After a few false starts, I got a name, Daria Nielsen. Art collector. Owned a bunch of pieces from local southern artists. Lived in a big white house in Charleston with a wraparound porch and a corgi named Tuna. I sent an email. Honest, raw. Told her I was the artist. Told her it wasn't just a painting. She replied within 24 hours. She invited me to coffee. We met at a little cafe near the harbor. She wore a red scarf and smelled like lavender and something older, something antique. She looked me in the eye and said, "I'm so sorry." I didn't even realize I was shaking until she reached across the table and held my hand. "If I'd known," she said, "I would have never bought it. It's beautiful, but it's yours." "I can pay you back," I said. She shook her head. "No, it doesn't belong to me." She gave it back. I drove home with the painting buckled into the passenger seat like a sacred thing. I watched it at every stoplight, like it might disappear. When I got back to my apartment, I hung it on the wall above my bed. And I cried. For the first time in a long time, I cried like a child. Loud. Messy. Unapologetic. It wasn't just about the painting. It was everything. The years I lost. The people I loved. The betrayal. The silence. The way my family decided my pain was theirs to sell. And for the first time in years, I felt something settle in me. Not peace exactly, but it was kind of quiet. After I got the painting back, I didn't talk to anyone in my family for a week. I didn't answer Talia's texts. I didn't return Kyle's call. My mom left a voicemail where she said, "This is all being blown out of proportion," and I nearly smashed my phone against the wall. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in front of that painting every night like it was some kind of altar. I studied every brushstroke, every shade of red, every jagged twist of the tree. I didn't know how to explain it even to myself, but I felt like that painting was the only damn thing in my life that had ever told the truth. And now, knowing what they did, it felt like they'd stolen my truth and passed it off like a yard sale item. On the 8th day, Kyle showed up at my apartment. He knocked twice, the way he used to when we were kids and sneaking into each other's rooms after lights out. I opened the door and stared at him. "You drove all the way from Greensboro?" "Yeah." "You couldn't text?" "You weren't answering." I stepped aside and let him in. He looked around awkwardly, noticed the painting on the wall, and stopped like he'd walked into a landmine. "That's it?" he asked. "Yep." "Damn." He sat down on the armrest of my couch. I stayed standing. The air between us was thick. "Look," he started. Talia didn't mean to stop saying that. She didn't. She thought, what did she think? I snapped. That the painting I did while I was recovering from trying to KLL myself was just, what? A decoration. Kyle rubbed the back of his neck. "She thought you'd forgotten about it. She thought maybe you'd moved on." I laughed bitterly. "Moved on?" "Kyle, I haven't moved on from anything. I still have nightmares where I'm back in that hospital bed, and I wake up sweating like I've just run a marathon. That painting isn't just acrylic and canvas. It was the only proof I had that I crawled out of that place alive." He didn't say anything. I stared at him. She didn't even ask, man. That's what gets me. Not even a call. She just decided. She thought. I don't give a crap what she thought. She had no right. We were both quiet for a long time. I could see the guilt working its way through his face, but I wasn't going to let him off the hook with a half-hearted apology. Then he said, real quiet, "She gave the money to Mom." I blinked. "What?" "She didn't keep it. She gave it to Mom to help with the house. Said it could go toward your bills too, since Mom had been covering a few for you without saying anything." That hit me in a way I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know Mom had been helping with anything. I thought the anonymous power company donation last winter was a charity program. Why didn't anyone tell me? Kyle shrugged. "You were fragile, man. We didn't want to dump more on you." Fragile. That word. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. "I'm not glass, Kyle. I'm not some sad little snowflake you have to shield from the wind. I'm a grown man who's been through hell, and the worst part? It wasn't the hospital or the breakdown. It was coming back and realizing my family doesn't trust me enough to treat me like a F-king adult." He looked like I'd slapped him. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I didn't know it meant that much." I thought. I don't know. Maybe it would help. "It didn't," I said flatly. He nodded, stood up, and walked to the door. Hand on the knob, he paused. Talia wants to talk. I scoffed. Of course she does. Now that the painting's gone. She's not a monster, Rue. I met his eyes. She's not, no. But she's also not innocent. He nodded. Quiet. Then I left. 2 days later, Talia called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Ruben, I don't even know where to start. I messed up. I really did. But you have to believe me, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I didn't know how much that painting meant. I thought it might help. With the bills. With Mom. With you. Please call me. I didn't. Instead, I went to Mom's house. Not to talk. Not to make peace. Just to get the rest of my stuff. The air smelled the same as always. Faint lemon cleaner and old books. The house hadn't changed much since we were kids. Photos lined the walls, most of them framed in crooked Dollar Tree frames. I passed the hallway where Talia's prom photo still hung, her and her date smiling with perfect teeth, and made my way to the attic. It was hotter than hell up there. I found the rest of my paintings stacked against the far wall, some unfinished, some damaged, all forgotten. I took them, every last one. Mom saw me as I was leaving. She came out the front door in her robe, holding a mug of coffee. Ruben, she called. I didn't want to do this. I really didn't. She walked down the steps slowly. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I didn't think you'd want me here, I said. She frowned. Don't say that. I mean, you didn't stop them. You didn't even call. I thought they talked to you. I stared at her. You knew what that painting was. You saw me when I made it. You saw me when I could barely speak. And you let them sell it like it was some old lamp. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't know what to do. You could have asked. I didn't want to upset you. I laughed, bitter. Too late. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Not in anger, just in defeat. I'm not mad at you, I said. I just can't keep pretending like this family didn't let me drown. You're being cruel. No, I'm being honest. I turned and left. After that, I started painting again. For the first time in years, I pulled out fresh canvases. I didn't paint like I was trying to be an artist. I painted like I was bleeding again, just quietly this time. More grief, more truth, but different. I took a job at a local rehab center. They had an opening for an art therapy assistant. The pay was low, the room was small, but the people, they got it. I sat with men and women who'd been to war, to prison, to the edge and back, and we painted. We painted silence. We painted noise. We painted things we didn't have words for. And I brought my tree painting in one day. Not to show off, just to share. One of the guys, Jaden, 27, recovering from a heroin addiction, looked at it for a long time. Then he said, "It looks like it's screaming." I nodded. It was. He didn't ask anything else. He just picked up a brush and started on his own. A couple weeks passed. I didn't hear from Talia again. No calls, no texts. Not even a passive-aggressive group message pretending everything was fine, which was unusual. Normally, she couldn't go more than a few days without poking the bear, sending me an article about mental resilience, or a quote from some influencer-turned-mother of 3 talking about letting go of bitterness. This time, silence. Until Kyle texted, "She's pissed. Says you ghosted her after she tried to apologize." I stared at my phone for 5 minutes before responding. She didn't try to apologize. She tried to justify. Kyle replied almost instantly. She wants to meet. Neutral ground. Just talk. I thought about it. 4 hours. Literally hours. I paced my living room, stared at the painting, made coffee, poured it down the sink, started writing a response, deleted it. Eventually, I agreed. We met at the community center off Hendersonville Road, the place we used to go to as kids for swim lessons and fall festivals. There was something cruelly ironic about sitting in the same building where Talia once won a 3rd-grade pie-eating contest while we tried to untangle 30 years of family damage. She was already there when I walked in, sitting at a round table, flipping through her phone. Her hair pulled back tight, her purse perched on the chair like a passenger. She looked up and smiled, but it was one of those let's get this over with smiles. Polite. Thin. "Hey," she said. "Hey." I sat across from her. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Just the hum of fluorescent lights and the faint sound of a kid crying somewhere down the hall. "I didn't expect you to actually come," she said. I shrugged. "Figured I'd give you the benefit of the doubt." She nodded. "Thanks." Another beat of silence. Then, "Look, Ruben. I really didn't mean for this to spiral. I thought I was doing something good." "That's the part one don't get," I said. "How does selling something I made during the worst period of my life equate to doing something good?" She looked tired. Not in the sleepless mom way, more like the emotionally worn-out kind. Because it felt like you weren't doing anything. You were stuck. You weren't painting. You weren't talking to us. You weren't living. I clenched my jaw. And you thought pawning off my past would wake me up? I thought maybe it would help you see your worth, she said quietly. That someone saw value in your work. That didn't work, Talia. That was a wound. I know that now. Do you? I asked, leaning forward. Because every time you talk about it, you turn it into some noble mission. You and Kyle and Mom, acting like you were trying to protect me. You weren't protecting me. You were controlling me. That landed. I saw it hit her right in the chest. She looked away. I guess I didn't know what else to do. You scare me sometimes. I blinked. Scare you? Yeah, she said. You go dark, Ruben. You disappear. You stop answering. You fall into this pit and we don't know how to pull you out. I rubbed my face, tired suddenly. Then say that. Say you're scared. Don't sell my life story to the highest bidder. She looked down at the table, her hands knotted together. I didn't mean for it to hurt you. I know, I said. But it did. We sat in that truth for a while. No more defenses. Just a quiet acknowledgement. Do you hate me? She asked, barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I didn't hate her. But I didn't trust her either. And that, coming from someone who's been dragged through therapy, abandoned by a spouse, and left alone in a psychiatric ward, that meant something. Eventually, I said, I don't know what I feel. She nodded like she expected that. Okay. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. There was no dramatic reconciliation. We just left. A few nights later, Mom called. I let it ring. Then again. Then a third time. The fourth time I picked up. She didn't say hello. Just jumped straight into it. I feel like I've lost all my kids. I was caught off guard. What? You won't come around. Talia's walking on eggshells. Kyle's trying to hold it together, but he's exhausted. And I just sit here in this house full of ghosts. That stung. I leaned against the wall, phone pressed tight to my ear. Maybe if we'd all stopped pretending everything was okay when it wasn't, there wouldn't be so many ghosts. You think I don't know that? She snapped. You think I don't lie awake at night wondering if I should have done something different? Maybe noticed sooner? Maybe hugged you tighter? Maybe asked more questions. I closed my eyes. Then why didn't you? Because I was scared, she said, her voice cracking. I didn't know how to help you, Ruben. You came back from that hospital like a shadow. You were here, but you weren't here. And I thought if I said the wrong thing, you'd disappear completely. I sank to the floor. You could have just told me that, I said, voice shaking. I didn't know how. We sat in silence, both of us breathing into the space between us, heavy with all the things we never said. I miss you, she said eventually. I miss you too, I whispered. In the following weeks, things stayed messy. Kyle called more often, just to talk. Sometimes about nothing, how his daughter scraped her knee, or how the basement was flooding again. I let him talk. Sometimes I talked back. Talia sent me a photo of one of my old paintings she'd found in the attic. A seascape. I didn't even remember painting it. She texted, found this. Not selling it. Just admiring. I didn't reply. I started keeping my studio lights on later. Sometimes past midnight. Painting again. Not for anyone else. Not for a gallery. Not for a bill. Just for me. There was one day at the rehab center that stuck with me. A young woman named Marin, mid-30s, scars up and down her arms, sat staring at a blank canvas. She'd been coming for 2 weeks but hadn't touched a brush. That day, I sat beside her. Didn't say a word. She finally picked up a paint pen and started drawing thin, spindly lines. Over and over. Dozens of them. At one point she stopped, looked at me and asked, Do you ever feel like your pain's too ugly to share? I looked at her and said, Yeah. But sometimes, the ugly stuff is what ends up saving someone else. She nodded. Went back to painting. Later that night, I realized I'd stopped seeing my painting as just mine. It was still personal. Still sacred. But now, it was part of something bigger. It wasn't just a wound anymore. It was proof that wounds heal. Winter crept in quietly that year. The cold came early, slipping under doors and through cracked windows like it was hunting for places to settle. My apartment smells like old coffee grounds and acrylic paint, which, surprisingly, wasn't terrible. I had 2 space heaters going and still needed a third, but I made do. I kept painting. It wasn't always good. Hell, most of it wasn't. Some days I'd sit there for hours just pushing the same color around the canvas, unsure what I was trying to say. But I kept showing up. That was new for me. One night, a Thursday, it was late, probably past 1 a.m., and I got a knock on the door. Which was weird. I live above a hardware store. No one just shows up at 1 a.m. I opened it cautiously, half expecting someone drunk or lost. It was Kyle. He looked miserable. Red-eyed, breathing heavy, holding a six-pack in one hand and a gas station bag in the other. What the hell? I asked. I didn't know where else to go, he said. I let him in. He dropped onto my couch, set the six-pack on the table, and pulled out a half-smashed bag of gummy worms. Want one? He asked. No, he popped one in his mouth and chewed slowly. Talia and Mom had a blow-up tonight. Oh. He nodded. Mom accused her of being selfish. Talia called her manipulative. Kyle Jr. cried. Dad's ashes got knocked over. I winced. Jesus. I mean, they were already sealed, but still. Symbolic, you know. I sat beside him. What was it about? Everything, he said. You. Me. The painting. Thanksgiving. The fact that Mom still calls me the baby, even though I'm 35 and have a mortgage. We both sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, We're not good at talking about the hard stuff, are we? Nope. He cracked open a beer. I keep thinking about what you said. About how we watched you fall apart. I didn't say anything. I did watch you, he went on. You'd come to family dinners looking like a ghost. Everyone tiptoed around you. I thought if we ignored it, it'd go away. That's not how pain works, I said. I know that now. Another pause. You know what I realized tonight, he asked. What? We're all broken. Not just you. Me, Talia, Mom. Even Dad was. Before the cancer took him. We just got really good at hiding it. Yeah, I said. I know. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. I'm tired of pretending we're okay. Then stop pretending. He nodded. You think it's too late? I shook my head. No. But it's not easy. I don't want easy, he said. That surprised me. Kyle had always been the easy one. The peacekeeper. The neutral ground. I stood up, walked over to the painting. The tree. The red sky. The scars in the background only I knew were there. He followed me. I hated that thing for a while, he admitted. Not because it was bad. Because it made me feel something I didn't want to feel. Good, I said. He looked at me. I want you to feel something, I told him. That's the point. A week later, I was at the rehab center when something unexpected happened. A woman named Joy, mid-50s, bright eyes, recovering from alcoholism, brought in a newspaper clipping. Look at this, she said, practically buzzing. It was a local arts piece. Hidden Voices, the power of expression in recovery. My name was in it. My painting was in it. I had no idea it was even being written. Why didn't you tell us you were famous? She teased. I laughed. Because I didn't know. The article talked about the center's new approach. How they were using authentic, trauma-informed methods. How the painting, the tree, was inspiring others in the program. How an anonymous artist turned pain into progress. I sat with that for a long time. People were seeing my pain. But not in the way Talia had done it. Not for profit. Not for convenience. They were seeing it as a map. That weekend, I went to see my mom. I didn't call ahead. Just showed up. Knocked on the back door like I used to when I was 14 and locked myself out after sneaking a smoke behind the shed. She opened the door, surprised but not shocked. Reuben, she said like she wasn't sure if she should smile or cry. I held up a thermos. Brought coffee. She stepped aside and let me in. The house smelled like cinnamon and something burnt. There were laundry baskets everywhere, and the TV was playing some British mystery show she always watches. We sat at the kitchen table, just sipping for a bit. Then she said, You're doing better. I corrected her. She nodded. Better than before. I gave her that. We didn't dive into the deep stuff right away. It was more like easing into cold water. Talking about little things. The garden. Her neighbor's yappy dog. A recipe she wanted to try but couldn't pronounce. Then she looked at me and said, I still have some of your drawings. From when you were 10. You drew monsters and aliens and robots that had feelings. I smiled. That tracks. You've always been emotional, she said. Even when you didn't say anything, you felt everything. She reached under the table, pulled out a dusty old folder, and slid it toward me. Don't sell those, I joked. She didn't laugh. Just looked at me. I'm sorry, Reuben. I should have protected you better. I looked at her hands. Older than I remembered. A little shaky. You still can, I said. But it has to start with honesty. I'm trying, she said. That's enough for now. The family didn't magically come back together. No warm Hallmark moments. No group hug in the living room. But we started talking. A little here. A little there. Talia sent me a long email. Not a defense. Not an excuse. A story. About the miscarriage she had 5 years ago and never told anyone about. About the night she sat on the bathroom floor, bleeding and alone, and how she didn't know how to tell a soul. About how, for years, she carried that silence like a badge, I thought if I couldn't talk about my pain, she wrote, no one else should either. I read it 3 times. Didn't reply right away. Some wounds take time. Some don't close all the way. There's still more. A confrontation that's coming. A choice I'll have to make. A boundary I might need to keep or let fall. But not yet. Right now, I'm sitting in my apartment, light from the window hitting that tree painting just right. I'm sipping cold coffee and I'm okay. Not healed. Not whole. But okay. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. It happened quietly. No dramatic reveal. No big confrontation with yelling in a crowded restaurant. Just a slow, methodical reclaiming of my voice. It started with a phone call from Carmen, the director at the rehab center. Hey, she said, I hope this isn't weird, but someone from the Asheville Art Collective stopped by the other day. Apparently, someone sent them pictures of your work. I was instantly suspicious. Who? Didn't say. Anonymously submitted. But they're interested. Like, really interested. They want to do a feature on artists whose work emerged from trauma. I felt my chest tighten. Don't panic. Not fear. Something else. Something like possibility. I said, tell them I'm interested. But on my terms. The Asheville Art Collective hosted a quarterly show in a converted warehouse downtown. It had big windows, exposed beams, brick walls, all the things rich white folks love in their urban artsy spaces. I'd been there once before years ago with Harper. Now they wanted me. I spent weeks preparing. Not just painting, but curating. Selecting work that told a story. My story. Not the pretty version. Not the digestible version. The real one. I titled the collection Uninvited Guests. Each piece was named after an emotion I'd buried. Disregard. Panic. Pity. Permission. Forgiveness. And yes, the painting, the one they sold without asking, the tree with the red sky, it was the centerpiece. Hung alone on a wall with a single spotlight. I didn't touch it. Didn't edit it. Just mounted it raw, exactly as it was when I crawled back into myself. Underneath, a small plaque read, "This was created during a mental breakdown. It was sold without my knowledge. It is not for sale. It never will be." The night of the opening, the gallery was packed. Strangers, students, donors, journalists. People lingered in front of my work, some whispering, some crying. And then I saw them. Talia, Kyle, and Mom. Standing near the back, frozen in place, eyes fixed on the tree. They hadn't told me they were coming. Someone must have forwarded the invite. I didn't approach them right away. I waited until they made their way around the room. I watched them read the titles, the descriptions. I saw Talia's eyes widen at pity, which was a canvas covered in sharp black lines interrupted only by a single cracked gold stripe through the center. That one had been about her. When they finally found me near the punch table, none of them spoke at first. Talia stepped forward. "This is incredible." I nodded. "Thanks. I didn't know you were planning something like this," Mom said. I wasn't. Until I realized I had to take it back. Kyle looked around. "People love it. I heard someone ask if you were selling prints." "I'm not," I said flatly. Talia looked at me, her face unreadable. "That plaque under the tree painting. It was about us." "Yes," I said. "It still is." She swallowed. "You're angry." "I'm not," I said. "Not anymore. But I am done pretending that what you did wasn't a violation. You took something that didn't belong to you and used it to patch a hole in your conscience." Her eyes were glossy, but she didn't cry. "And this," she asked, gesturing around. "This is your way of..." "What?" "Getting back at us." I smiled. Not cruel. Just calm. "This is me telling my story the right way. You got to tell your version when you sold it. This is mine." Kyle looked down. Mom looked tired. Talia didn't flinch. "You could have just forgiven us." "I did," I said. "This is forgiveness. I'm just not handing out absolution for free anymore." I didn't wait for their response. I walked away. The show ended up featured in 3 local papers, a podcast about trauma and art, and eventually a regional spotlight on PBS. I was invited to speak on a panel. And I did. I told the truth. I never said their names. I never needed to. The power wasn't in exposing them. The power was in choosing not to be small anymore. They came to the next show 2 months later. They were quieter that time. Supportive even. We weren't a happy family, but we were honest. And that was enough. One afternoon, about a year later, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. Talia's handwriting. Inside was a photo of one of her daughters holding a little canvas. A tree. Red sky. Tiny brush strokes. Underneath, it said, "Uncle Roo is my favorite artist." I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it in the fridge. That was the revenge. Not public humiliation. Not shouting matches. but growth. Art. Clarity. Telling the truth so loudly, they could no longer pretend they hadn't heard it. Making them live with the story they helped write, but on my terms.